All right, so this is Chapter 2a, Day 7, multiple signs. So first thing we're going to do is really quick go over the order of operations. Again, probably last year, a lot of you learned the acronym PEMDAS, which isn't entirely bad. We just need to add on to it. So on the very first step, in PEMDAS, they say parentheses. In reality, you start with any grouping symbols. So it could be parentheses, it could be brackets, absolute value bars. There's a lot of grouping symbols that we learn as we go along. The main thing is you start with the inside and you work your way out until you can get rid of the grouping symbols. All right, the E for PEMDAS stands for exponents. That's the one that is correct. And you can do exponents left to right. That isn't actually a rule for exponents, but if you do it left to right, you'll never be wrong. All right, here's where PEMDAS is a bit deceiving. Multiply and divide is the same step. You don't multiply everything and then divide everything. You multiply or divide from left to right. So the third step is the multiply, divide step from left to right. So it could be multiply, divide, divide, multiply, divide, multiply, divide, multiply. It's whatever you hit first. The last step is the same. The add, subtract step is actually the same step. It just goes from left to right. So last step should always be the add, subtract from left to right. If you get rid of grouping symbols, then you start the steps over with all the stuff that's outside of the grouping symbols. All right, 2 times 3 squared minus 9. Okay, so grouping symbols, none. Exponents, yes. This one you start with the 3 squared. 3 times 3, 3 squared means you have 2 3's multiplied together. The big number is what's being multiplied. The little number tells you how many of them. In this case, the power is a 2, so you have 2 different 3's being multiplied together, which is 9. So now you have 2 times 9 minus 9. All right, that's the exponent step. Now the multiply divide step. 2 times 9 is 18. And always the last step is add, subtract. 18 minus 9 is 9. All right, let's do another example. This one tricks people. 2 times 3 minus a negative 5 times a negative 6. The trick to this one is remembering that when you multiply divide, it is actually left to right. So you're going to start at the left and work your way to the right. The parentheses, there's nothing inside them to do, so you're not going to start with those parentheses because the insides are already simplified. So going left to right, 2 times 3 is 6. Continuing on to the right, a negative times a negative is a positive. Continuing on to the right, 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. So we've done all the multiplying from left to right. Now we start over and we do. Now what happens though sometimes is you get a double sign that's created as a result of multiplying. You do need to go back and start from the beginning, and any extra multiplication that's been created needs to be dealt with. So a positive times a negative is a negative. And then last is add, subtract. 6 minus 30 is negative 24. All right, last one. Notes are really short today because this is mostly review. negative 6 plus minus 10 squared plus a negative 4. Now, this one introduces a notation issue that will drive you nuts every year you ever take math. When math teachers get together and we talk about the top 5 problems that all students do, no matter what level, pre-calculus, calculus, pre-algebra, algebra, this is one of the top 5. That's an exponent, so clearly we do that first, but is it a 10 squared or a negative 10 squared? Okay, so we just write 10 squared versus negative 10 squared. I'm going to put the negative in front of that one. Erase that. Those are actually 2 different things. The one on the left, because there's no parentheses, the 10 is being squared, the negative isn't. So what it really is a negative 1 times a 10 squared. That's what that is. We just don't put the 1 in the dot. So when you square 10, 10 times 10 is 100, you end up with negative 1 times 100, which is negative 100. Now on the other side, the 10 is with a negative also, but they are in parentheses and the power is on the edge of the parentheses. That means that this is not a 10 squared. It's actually a negative 10 squared because of the parentheses. So this is negative 10 times negative 10, which is positive 100. Two different answers, and it's a notation thing. It's can you read the notation? So when we go back to our problem, we realize it is just a 10 squared. 10 times 10 is 100. So we have plus minus 100, and nothing else changes except that the 10 squared is replaced with the 100. That's your exponent. Okay, we did the exponent step. Now we're going to go left to right, multiply, divide. So here's the first one. Positive times a negative is a negative. Continuing to the right, a positive times a negative is a negative. That's our multiply, divide step, left to right. Now we start over. We're going to add, subtract from left to right. Negative 6 minus 100 is negative 106. Continuing to the right, negative 106 minus 4 is negative 110. You can see how you have to know your order of operations like cold. You have to know them very, very specifically so that you know what step to do. It's not a mystery. All right, are there any questions?